Yes, sir. We are finally back, Scotty. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Faithful Fanatic Show live here on DSM-Media's Philadelphia YouTube and Twitter channels. Guys, if you are new to the channel, make sure to do us a favor. Head on over to the YouTube channel specifically and make sure to smash that subscribe button. It is the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up here on the screen with us. We still cannot see your comments or questions posted on the Twitter stream. No thanks. The StreamYard don't know when they're going to get that fixed, but that's why you should subscribe to the YouTube channel first and foremost. I'm one half of your host, Dylan Davis. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. The Phillies are off to an historic start, 35-14, best record in the NL, best record in the MLB. Another win last night over the defending champs. We knocked them below 500 now, Scotty, after that win. So I'm not sure what people, if that win really counts to the strength of schedule, people, because the Rangers are no longer above 500 thanks to the Phillies.
The rumors.
And we have not discussed the Eagles' schedule release. So we're going to give our first glance and first thoughts and opinions on that schedule and how the Birds can make out once we hit September, man. But it feels good to be back. For everybody that does watch us consistently, if you're going to see this live or on replay, we have been out for a while. I don't know if you can tell. I've been sick as a motherfucker. I don't know why. And every night I would start to feel better, and I'd say, Scotty, let's get back on it tomorrow. And then I wake up, and I don't know what it is with the morning time, but you just feel even worse in the morning time. So I wake up, sore throat, congested. Before I was sounded way worse than this, and you guys would have thought I was a different person if you just heard the audio. So I said, yeah, man, I'm not putting my face on a screen right now until we're ready to go. So here we are, a lot to discuss, but my man, it's good to be back.
Absolutely great to be back, man. Happy to get back in the flow here this morning. As you mentioned, it's allergy season. The weather's changing. A lot of different stuff going on. We had obviously the disappointment with the Sixers going out in the first round, so that didn't help anything either.
Classic.
Classic, typical. But no, I'm happy to be back here. Happy to talk some positives today with the Phillies, obviously on the tear that they're on. And then obviously getting into the Eagles schedule later on in the show, but all positives here. That's the great part of this show this morning is we're coming back with a positive light. And what can you say bad about the Titans right now? That's the real question. Right? We can sit here and we can ask like, what's going great for the Titans right now? What can you honestly say?
What's your favorite part about all of this? Yeah.
What's your favorite part? Right, like the 9-0 streak from Ranger, him being the best pitcher in baseball. Boom. Basically, I believe he's tied for the lead in RBIs.
Leading now, brother. Leading now.
He's leading now. Okay, so it wasn't updated this morning. Got you. So there's a lot going on, a lot of positives to go around with this team, man, and I think that's what you can say. This team right here, this team right here, man,
the best team in baseball.
They are the best team in baseball, the best team in Philly right now. What can we say? The only team, really. But
PR gives his favorite part to it all, man. And I would have to agree and add on that this is why they're off to the start they're off. Now keep up with me. We all know and expect the lineup to be here right now. We know the cold streaks they go through. A lot of the reasons they've been sent home each of the last two postseasons in disappointing fashion, right? But we expect like that's where the beef of the payroll comes into play. It's where all the star power seems to lie. Bryce, Trey, Schwarber, JT, all the home runs, all the fun. Bohm leading with RBIs. That's what this team has been built on.
Yeah.
The difference for this not only quick start, but just exceedingly great start, 35 wins in 49 games start. The difference has been the pitching staff. It's been the starting staff. It's been the bullpen. It's been contributions from the little guys. It's been the stars showing up each and every outing. Zach Wheeler has had one bad outing this year. Yeah. He's 5-3 on the year. Doesn't sound too great when you look at Ranger being 9-0. He's 5-3. He's got one bad start against the Pittsburgh Pirates. They lost like 9-1 or 7-1 in that one. I think he allowed 4 runs. The bullpen gave up 5. So Zach's got a bad start. Nola got shelled against the Braves on the first start of his season, right? Since then, he's got like a just over a 3 ERA. Spencer Turnbull's 2-0. Since Taijuan Walker's return from injury, he's 3-0. You already mentioned Cy Ranger, 9-0 with a 1.36 ERA, like a sub 0.65 whip. this season, best in baseball, best in some time. That's been the difference.
Yeah.
Because when you have a team that's going to average over 5 runs per game, you're going to be in a lot of ball games. You're going to have a chance to win come the 8th and 9th inning of those ball games when you're scoring 5, 6, 7 runs on any given night. But when you have a staff that is averaging under 3.5 runs, under 3.2 runs per outing, you're going to win a lot of ball games. And that's what you're seeing right now. And then you add on the fact with the bullpen, Matt Strom's been great. Alvarado closes the door last night. I know it got a little rocky, but still closes the door. Ryan Kirkering shown flashes since he's come back from injury. Hoffman's been good this year. Again, I know he shake last night, but he's been good this year. Sir Anthony's been better his last 2 or 3 outings after his rocky start. Soto, I don't think has allowed a run in I forget how long, even though he scares the hell out of all of us every time he comes in. The starting staff, the bullpen, the pitching all around, man, has been the best in baseball. And I think that's why this team is the best in baseball right now.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you because I think when you look at this team, like you said, you come into this season, you know the lineup's going to do what they're going to do. It is about as consistent as you can ask, I would say, right? They have major cold stretches, but usually you can have at least 1 or 2 of those guys in the mix that are getting hot at the same exact time. So you knew you weren't going to have too much struggle getting runs on the board, but the thing for me is when you go out and you see the Dodgers address their pitching staff and free agency, right? They go out and they get 2 of the biggest stars to add to their pitching staff. And then you look at the Phillies, and I'm just using the Dodgers as that glowing example. They're always going to be that team that goes out and spends the most money, right? But when you look at the Phillies this offseason, they didn't necessarily go out and obtain that next level guy.
No.
They gave the money in-house. You got Nola back on an extension. Rangers still here, right? And I think that's where the surprise comes. It's there's not really anything too
drastic,
too big or drastic of a move that was added to this pitching staff. They just simply got better. And that's kind of the exciting part about it is you still have room. If something happens here, as you approach the trade deadline or so on and so forth towards the middle of the season, and you find out that one of these guys in your bullpen are maybe not as good as what they looked early on in the season. Well, now you have the time, you have had the patience to look around and see what
Sir
you
Anthony
have.
Dominguez stays a problem.
Exactly. Maybe now you don't have to go out and get that 1A starter that you were looking at in the offseason. Now you just have to go get a middle-of-the-pack bullpen piece to kind of supplement or glue these guys together in the rotation. And I think that's the best part is that this is kind of a surprise. I know it's not – we have confidence in Wheeler. We know Nola can have his nights, but we have a decent amount of confidence in Nola. But Ranger Suarez is coming out and looking like the lead.
Man.
Exactly. He's the leading Cy Young candidate right now, especially in the NL. And I mean, I don't know what to say about it. I thought, Rob Thompson, he explained it well as the manager. It's hard to fathom that he
really is. And some people out there will try. I told you so. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. There are people saying Ranger Suarez breakout year. Some people joke Cy Young.
What's a breakout year though?
Yeah.
Third starter.
Yeah, if right now Ranger Suarez was 7-2 with a 2.80 ERA, it's a breakout year for Ranger Suarez.
Yeah.
He's 9-0 with almost 70 Ks, one of the best whips in I forget how long, and a 1.36 ERA.
Yeah.
This so far surpasses breakout year. It's not even fun. It's the start. Don't get me wrong. It's the start. We're still in the month of May. It's the start of one of the greatest seasons I've ever witnessed a pitcher put together.
Yeah.
And that's your third option. And dude, it's funny, man. You go back to that Diamondback series. Think about the quick trigger, the leash that Rob Thompson had on Ranger Suarez just a few months ago. Half a calendar year ago when Ranger Suarez wasn't allowed to pitch into the 5th inning in Arizona. he had 56 pitches and was getting yanked for trust for whatever. I don't know. That's gone. Like that's a difference making piece for this team already in the starting staff. Like you were talking about, they haven't added anything new. That's something that was added that they didn't have to go get from the outside.
Yeah.
Because now this is a legit number 2 or 3 option in a playoff series that can throw a complete game, 7, 8 innings. Topper's going to allow Ranger Suarez to pitch this postseason. There's not going to be any 4 innings, get him out of there, throw Christopher Sanchez in the game. That's not happening this year. So they have added without having to trade assets or do anything that Dave Dombrowski's known for. And I think that's what everyone's waiting for. Like Dave Dombrowski's kind of known for pushing those chips to the middle of the table, throwing those assets, throwing those minor leaguers, those prospects out there and dangling them over everybody's heads and seeing what he can get to make a push for it to bring a World Series ring. Because at the end of the day, that's what's most important. And with this start, it feels like a Dombrowski trade deadline is incoming.
And
that's what it feels like.
Just before you get into that, because I see TR had the question, maybe a closer is who Dombrowski goes after, but just wanted to point out, when Trey Turner comes back, that's going to be like trading for a superstar and getting him back.
Correct.
Like this team that's playing.
Right. We talked about that with Bryce last year, right? Like when Bryce was missing the first month and a half of a season, it's like, well, you're adding Bryce Harper to this, right? Trey Turner is going to miss in total about 6 weeks. That's another thing, man. Like I know we've really focused on the pitching, and rightfully so, and we can still continue to talk about it as long as we want to on the show because it's been that dominant. But
it's been awesome, man.
This team's resilient in a way, resilient in a way that you wouldn't think a dominant team would have to be, right? When you think dominant team, I'm looking at some of these wins: 11-5, 10-5. 4-0, 8-3, 8-2. You look at this dominant team over the stretch and you're like, well, how resilient do they have to be? Aren't they just kicking the shit out of people? Yeah, they are. They are.
Yeah.
But they're also rallying in the 9th inning against one of the game's best closers last year.
Yeah.
They're also getting down 2-0 in the first inning and then immediately responding in the first or second inning with a tie game or taking the lead right back from that lesser team. They're never out of a game. You never feel uncomfortable. I mean, Ranger Suarez, gave up? We were down 1-0 in the 3rd inning last night or whatever it was. Bottom of the 3rd, Kyle Schwarber rips an RBI single. Tie game. Phillies never really looked back from that point on. And you were never really concerned once Ranger gave up that first RBI double that, the wheels are starting to spin and, maybe he's going to give up a 3-run inning. You never get that feeling from him or from this team, man. So they're resilient. They're fun. They're never out of a game. And once they step on your throat, Scotty, they're not letting go, man. They're not taking their foot off of the gas.
That's the thing that I think it's lost between, these last couple of seasons with the Titans is like, okay, yes, they surprised everybody about 2 years ago and made the World Series, right? And it faltered in the World Series. They lost that. Then last year they fall a step short, right? But it's all experience, man. This is all experience for these guys. This is the same unit from last year. It's mostly the same unit from the year before that. And so, gaining all of this team camaraderie, all of this trust, all of this chemistry, it's huge for this team, man. And I think that's what we're seeing early on is like a team that is all on the same page. They're all on the same page. They all have the same goals. They knew exactly how they had to start this season, right? And I know all the talk about the schedule, whatever. At the end of the day, you got to play who's in front of you. You got to beat who's in front of you.
It is the most ridiculous. It is the most ridiculous argument I've ever seen in my life, and it's not even really. It's not even a conversation. It's not even a legitimate argument. All it is like division rivals on social media. All it is Braves fans with players as their profile pictures and Mets fans. That's all it is. It's not real people. It's not anyone that would ever talk to you in real life. It's these fake Twitter accounts of fans of different of rival teams, and that's all they're arguing. But it is a lot of Braves fans, man, and it makes me laugh because, how do you guys think you win 110 games? Like when the Braves won 106 games last year, 2 years ago. How do Braves fans think they got there?
Exactly.
You have to beat the bad teams on your schedule to calculate, to add up to 100 plus victories in 162 games. You have to take care of those teams. They do know, like, the Phillies and Braves come 162 are going to play the same teams, right?
Come on.
They do understand, they do comprehend that. It's a really stupid conversation. And like so I said it jokingly, right? So the Rangers were 500. They're the defending champions. Now they're hurt. I understand that. Like Garcia didn't play, Josh Young's out, their pitching staff's beat up, but they've been hurt all year. They're still 500. They're the defending champs. They come to town. Phillies beat them. Well, now they're not 500 anymore. So does that not count as a win against a team
exactly
under 500?
Exactly.
The San Diego Padres took 3 out of 4 versus the Atlanta Braves. The same team, same fan base that's bitching and moaning right now about strength of schedule. They just lost 3 out of 4 to the Padres. The Phillies just swept the Padres in San Diego less than a month ago. Common opponents, Scotty. I don't want to get this number mixed up. This should be the conversation that Braves fans are actually having instead of just looking at the Sixers schedule. In mutual opponents between the Phillies and the Braves this year, the Phillies are 12-2, and the Braves are 9-8 between mutual opponents this year.
And they're what? The Braves are 6 games back of the fight right now.
Yeah, but they want to talk about strength schedule. It's stupid, man. So the Phillies don't care. The Phillies are paying that no mind, and they're beating the shit out of all the teams they're supposed to. Now, like I said, we've talked a lot about the pitching. We've talked about the schedule. We've talked about just how resilient and fun this team has been, man. But let's talk about that lineup a little bit, because that too has been a lot of fun. Yeah, Alec Boehm's leading the league in RBIs. Bryce, after having a slow start power-wise, has 11 home runs. I went back here, Scotty. I have all the wins pulled up, and I could go further, like even beyond where I'm about to take this. They scored 10, 6, 5, and 14 in games against the Blue Jays and the Giants combined. But if you go back their last 11 games, the Phillies are 9-2 in those games. They're 9-2 in those games. In the 2 losses, they scored 6 and 5. They lost 6-5 and 7-6. In that stretch, they have scored 8, 6, 5, 4-0 win, 10, 5, 4, 4, 11, 5. Just go a little further. 10 runs, 6 runs, 5 runs, 14 runs, 7 runs, 8 runs, 5 runs, 9 runs, 5 runs. Pretty good. Pretty good without Trey Turner. Even without Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber missed a little bit of time. Bryce Harper missed a game. JT Realmuto missed a little bit of time. Topper's been very friendly to Stott and Marsh and some of these guys and giving them days off, so they haven't been in the lineup as consistently as some people would like. So it's not even like they're throwing their A+ lineup out each and every night, and this is what they're doing night in and night out, Scott.
Night in and night out.
Yeah,
shows a little bit of depth, right? So it is interesting.
Talk about that, bro. Talk about that, because.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I mean, Edmundo Sosa steps up, plays great. Cody Clemens, there's no way in hell he's getting sent down.
Cody Clemens, though, man, the phenom.
I mean, that's another thing with this team, man. Rojas, like every single
next
person
man up
that gets their name called, whether it's an injury or just a night off for this lineup, for this team, they just come up big, man. Like I remember the one game Sosa started, he had scored their first 3. I think we were winning 3-2, and Sosa had all 3 RBIs. Like I think he had a 2-run double and a home run, like one game against the Nationals earlier on in the year. Like it's crazy, man. Cody Clemens with a game-tying home run down to their last out the other night to force extra innings, and they come away with a win. Like I could talk for 18 hours about this team.
I know, and it all sounds so good. I wanted to ask you this. When you look at the hot starts from like Bohm, and then you look at like the pitching staff, right? when looking at that specifically, which one do you feel is more likely to tail off?
Less sustainable?
Less sustainable. That's a better way to pose it.
Huh. I mean, I guess you have to say the staff because it was it was the unexpected part. Like this dominance was the unexpected part. But Scotty, I don't foresee that incoming, man. Like maybe not total. Maybe there's a stretch where the bullpen blows a couple leads in the summer. Maybe, excuse me, Taijuan Walker and Christopher Sanchez start allowing 4 or 5 runs each and their ERAs inflate and they're not as great at the back end. But those top 3, I think they're locked into it to a different zone this year, man.
Yeah.
You don't start 9-0 and then just I don't want to say drop off a cliff because just because he has a little bit of a decline doesn't mean he's really bad now and he dropped off that cliff. But Ranger Suarez, for my money, isn't going anywhere this year.
Yeah.
Zach Wheeler, pound for pound, is the best pitcher in baseball right now. And this has probably been the most consistent Aaron Nola I've seen in a couple of years to start the year. So I think those 3 are locked into a different stratosphere. I don't think they're going to hit much of a decline. Not saying they're not going to have bad starts here and there, but they're going to be fine. Like I said, maybe Walker, starts allowing 5 runs, one game, 4 runs, another game. And it's like, the team ERA is starting to inflate. But yeah.
No, it is interesting to think. What have you thought about Rob Thompson? He kind of, obviously the Phillies are winning a lot of games and things are going to get swept under the rug. Maybe things don't get noticed as much when the players are playing so well.
Yeah.
What have your thoughts been truly of Rob Thompson through this stretch?
I remember earlier on in the year, maybe 8 games in, 6 games in, you and I talked about Rob Thompson and how he was struggling with the lineup, with the bullpen management, just with certain things he was doing earlier on in the year. Like we do remember that like the Connor Brogdon issue was this same season, right? Like we do remember that. That was the beginning of the year. I thought he was struggling. And I thought that things he did with the bullpen and the lineup that cost them an NLCS appearance were spilling over into this season. And we had concerns and questions long-term, like, man, can this dude put that aside? I have learned 2 things. Winning is winning. And since Rob Thompson has taken over for Joe Girardi, the Phillies win a lot of games.
Yeah.
Point
They've
blank.
Been to very high places.
They've been to back-to-back NLCSs, a game away, a couple innings away from back-to-back World Series appearances, and now they have the best record in baseball but in a historic fashion. Yeah. So I'm just done questioning things. Is Brandon Marsh an everyday player? I had once thought so in the beginning of the year. Turns out Brandon Marsh continues to struggle against left-handed pitching. So, no, he's probably not an everyday player, as much as that hurts to say. Bullpen-wise, he's been great. Like, I think he's been great. Yeah. I think he found Boehm that home in the cleanup spot. Like, you and I remember one of our preseason questions was, who should hit here behind Bryce? It's clearly the RBI leader. Yeah. And the other thing I will say that I've watched him improve on and that I'm loving from him is the trust factor.
Yeah.
I think earlier on in the season and some of those issues we've seen before with the leashes on pitchers, with the inconsistency between different pitchers, right? One game Nola could be at 100 pitches, but he'll leave him in a little too long. But Wheeler's at 88 and he'll yank him. And you're not getting that. Like Ranger Suarez just went over 100 pitches last night in a 1-run ball game. Allowed a base runner. The broadcast started talking about Topper coming out. He didn't. He allowed Ranger to finish. Strikes out the next batter.
Yeah.
That's trust, man. And that's why you see this team, these players love him and want to play for him and win for him. And I think that's what you're seeing to start this year.
Once again, man, that's what gets lost. And I think, as we continue to do this podcasting thing, I think we learn too, like, as we focus in on these teams more and more, and get into every detail of every day that these teams, go out, train, practice, whatever. We focus in on every single interview, every single reporting opportunity for these coaches and these managers. And the simple truth is that like Topper could just be getting better at his job. Like he could just be starting to get to know his players a lot better since he took over.
Considering he's never done this before he took over this job. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it is crazy because I know, and it's not just a Philly thing; it's sports in general. It's impatience and lack thereof, and it's just one of those things when you look at Topper, like maybe he has figured out how to manage these guys to the perfect in the perfect sense, right? And maybe he's learning more and more about these guys every day, just like we are.
I think it's a great point.
It reminds me of, how we kind of looked at Nurse midway through the Sixers season this year. And we're like, we know he's a good coach, but like, what's going on? Nick Sirianni, that's kind of the opposite direction, right? Where we don't know if he's a good coach, but he has won a lot of games. It's just interesting.
I would say being a fan, man, especially doing something like this, hopping on a podcast, multiple times a week and, analyzing game by game, especially when it does come to Eagles and Sixers. They're a little less frequent, obviously, with the Eagles. But the Phillies, you're playing 6 out of every 7 days. Like it's a lot. Yeah. It's okay to critique and analyze and get happy, extremely happy and extremely angry night to night. But you have to keep it within that space. And that space is that game, that moment. Yeah. It's okay to scream your head off at Rob Thompson for making a boneheaded decision that cost the Phillies a game.
Absolutely.
That does not mean that take, that opinion, those feelings spill over into the big picture, which is the future of this team, the ceiling of this team, how he can do his job moving. That's what you have to try to limit. So mistakes are going to be made, man. Bryce Harper is going to make mistakes. Ranger Suarez is going to make mistakes this year. It has to stay in that realm. That does not mean because Bryce goes cold or Topper has a bad week managing the team or whatever, and they lose, 2 straight games, God forbid, which I know seems so far out of possibility right now for this team with the way they're playing. But, that doesn't mean you have to take it and make some like declaration that this team isn't going to do this and is going to struggle here.
Agreed, man.
Yeah,
Agreed.
man. Yeah, no. We said I don't know if you're still here. I've been sick for like 2 fucking weeks. So every morning.
And I think the one place you can go with holistic statements is probably the Sixers and saying they're not going to win anything.
So. Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, so let's another thing you have to do is you have to stack evidence and you have to handle things differently. So like when you're talking about the Sixers and their resume, I think it's fair to have long-term statements, not just get like those game-to-game issues can turn into future statements because of their issues. Nick Sirianni, we talked about him a lot. I mean, you're talking 2 out of 3 years, 3 out of 4 years of issues. That's enough to have legit concerns. But when, again, we're honing in on the Phillies and when people get upset about Rob Thompson doing his job, that's when you have to kind of sit back and go, all right, man, like, don't you just have to trust?
162 games. Yeah, it's and I think the bigger picture, and I think even the Eagles could fall into this category when you start talking about all of these teams, is like there's a different level of trust with these organizations as well, like ownership, right? That goes up a lot deeper, a lot further, and the Sixers ownership is a mess compared to the Phillies, especially where you see John Middleton. He's willing to go out and do what's necessary to get this team where you want to get it. So, I definitely feel you. I think long-term wise, especially when you look at all of these teams in this city, you have to analyze them differently. But let me ask you this, like going forward with the Fightins, obviously they're playing at I don't want to say an unreal clip because they're just playing like the best team in baseball. They could very well be the best team in baseball. So I don't want to call it unreal.
Actually, not to cut you off, but you can call it that because if they win today, they're on pace to have the most wins in MLB history. Not that they're going to have the most wins in MLB history, but they're statistically on pace to capture the most wins if they win today.
So what I was going to ask you going forward, what are your realistic expectations for this team? Like, are they going to come back down to earth, or is it going to be noticeable, or do you think they're going to still keep playing?
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something.
Talk to me.
The Phillies are on planet Earth right now. I think it's what the Phillies are. Now take that with 35-14. Maybe not that extreme, right?
They're building the rocket ship.
Those schedule vultures come out, and it does get a little tougher come August and September. Maybe they're not winning at this percentage of a clip, but I think they're there right now. I think that this team is the best team in baseball. I think they're the deepest team in baseball. I think the chemistry's already there. I think I'll argue lineup for lineup, pound for pound with anybody. Like we talk about all the time, man. We look at that LA Dodgers team and Mookie and Freddie and Ohtani and they Teoscar Hernandez is popping home run after home run. Max Muncy, Will Smith, like they're deep, man. But you get to that bottom of the lineup and you see the same things the Phillies have. Like when you look at a Johan Rojas, when you look at a Brandon Marsh on the back end, they have guys like Miguel Rojas and the one shortstop, I'm drawing a blank, the white kid, I'm forgetting his name, but like they it's not like they're just star-studded 1 through 9, right? Like they're heavy 1 through 6. Phillies are heavy 1 through 6. Pitching staff. I'm taking this staff over anybody and everybody right now. So I think they are the best team in baseball. I think they're going to continue to play like the best team in baseball. Maybe not at a 35 out of 49 game percentage, but something pretty close, man. Something pretty close. So, yeah, my expectations are for this team to win the division now. That's what.
Yeah, that's. I was just about to ask you that. Like, is that the level we're at right now?
Yeah, like don't get me. We have 6 games up on Atlanta. We play them 9 more games against Atlanta, I believe, this year. So they're going to have opportunities to crack into that deficit, but don't get me wrong, I'm sure they will. They're going to take a couple from the Phillies out of the 9. But no, the objective now is to keep this lead and win this division and then be that dominant team that we talked about all offseason long. And I think something getting lost here, Scotty. And again, I know I'm looking too much towards the future. It's what, May 22nd, but if they were to get back to at least the NLCS, right? Like we're trying to win a World Series, so you have to get there first to get to the World Series and then go win it. Again, when we talked about fan expectation and whatever over the last couple of years, this is getting taken for granted, man. If they get to that goal again, that is 3 straight NLCS appearances.
Yeah.
Even if they don't make the World Series, that is 3 straight. Like, you know how Sixers, we sit here and we crave an Eastern Conference Finals appearance. Yeah. Just get to that level, just be on that stage. The Phillies will be at that stage 3 years running.
Yeah.
And it's like an underlying part of the story of this team's responsibility.
If they can lock in home field advantage, right? Like not just in the division, but in the entire NL. They're 3 games up on the dot. It might not be realistic. We'll see how it plays out throughout the rest of the season, but I think it is an obtainable goal to win the NL, right? I don't know if that was looked at as obtainable at the beginning of the season. Maybe
that's a
some
great
people
point,
did,
man. That's another level, right? Like this. Yeah. Beating out the Braves, you'd have to think you have to win at least 100 games. And if you do so, you're going to be you're going to be a top 2 seed in the NL.
Yeah.
But were you good enough? Like, are you good enough to be the 1 seed? And do you get the first round bye like you would? And do you get home field advantage above everybody?
Yeah.
That's something.
We know what home field advantage does for the Titans as well, right? Like, I know they went cold in Philly in the NLCS last year, but that was a very rare occurrence for our stadium to not be rocking.
Listen, on May 22nd, I'll make you this promise. That situation will not occur again. Now, whether they get to the World Series, win a World Series, whatever the case may be, but that situation, if they were to come home up 3-2 in game 6 and 7 of an NLCS, that situation will not occur, will not happen again. Promise. I'll put it out there right now for you.
It can't.
NBA Finals talk. I like it. I'll bite for a second to transition before we get to the birds. I think that was enough. 35 minutes was a good comeback section.
The Titans.
Hey, they do play again tonight against the defending champs on that 3-game set. So if they can come away tonight, secure another series win, and that's another thing. I know I said I'm moving on. When's the last time? How many series in a row is this that we've won the series?
Let's see.
We split with the Reds in Cincinnati on a 4-game set back on April 22nd. So the last time we physically lost a series was the Cincinnati Reds on April 1st to the 3rd. So we lost the opening series to the Braves. We lost the next series at home to the Reds. Since then, the Phillies have gone on to win every series except a split with the Pirates in 4 games and a split with the Reds in 4 games, and they've won everyone else. Not too shabby. 7-14 win.
Maybe we can get into more, game by game talk now that we're in the midst and we're back.
Once those summer days start to hit, man, they'll come.
Yes, sir. Friday.
Little NBA Finals talk, man. So a few things here because I got a gripe to continue with the NBA. So after the Phillies were over, I tuned in to some Celtics Pacers, had Pacers plus 10. Thank you very much. But it did not come without a sweat as they went to overtime, of course. So a few things. The NBA's got a problem. And we've known this, we pretty sure we watched our favorite team lose a game because of officiating, literally lose a game in the playoffs. But that's neither here nor there. We know they've had an officiating issue. But last night, man, I mean this as a diehard Sixers fan. Last night was one of the worst I've seen. Outside of the ending of game 2 in that minute, I forget what they finished with. I want to say it was 27-6 total. But at one point in the game, in regulation, the Boston Celtics had attempted 23 free throws while the Indiana Pacers attempted 2.
Mm-hmm.
And the Indiana Pacers had more points in the paint than the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics attempted more three-pointers. So what does that normally tell you about the physicality of the game, of how the game's going?
Yeah.
I watched Tyrese Halliburton go down the lane, and Peyton Pritchard get no ball. Not a little bit of ball, not
even close.
No ball. All arm.
And tell me why when you see that on the replay, man, and maybe I've been watching too much soccer, something like that. Go and change the call immediately. Call it.
I know.
Just it's so obvious. Just call it. Have somebody up in the office, whatever, caucus, whatever they want to fucking call it, and change the call to the right call. When they're obvious like that, why challenge or do all this time reviewing, having Tony Brothers with, less than 20/20 eyesight go up to the monitor and review it?
And they didn't. They didn't even do that because the Pacers, Rick Carlisle had already used his challenge, and they can't. Man, very, very disappointing. Now, with that said, the Indiana Pacers pissed away a great opportunity to steal game 1.
That's how it always is, though. I just want to point that out. Even with the Sixers, it's we can always go back to these games where there's major officiating errors and find the errors by the team as well, man. And it's just, it does suck. Because the reason I'm glad you brought it up. I wasn't going to bring it up myself, but I am losing faith in the NBA.
It's tough.
As a whole, it's hard to imagine that it's not rigged.
It is tough. I will say, though, and again, he's very young, and he put together a very, very nice performance last night. But Tyrese Halliburton pooped his pants in the last minute and a half.
He did, yeah. He turned. He had a couple turnovers mixed in there.
He dribbled off his knee up 3 with 30 seconds left. That gave the Celtics the ball back. The worst decision he made, I don't know if you guys remember this if you watched it last night. I believe there might have been a minute left, probably under a minute, I'll say. I think it was the possession before he dribbled off his knee. He came down. They got a stop. I believe they were up 3 still or whatever. He came down and took a step back 3 from the left wing with like 17 seconds on the shot clock left. Bricked it, went the other way. Like, you don't do it. You dribble. I know you're still looking to get the best shot possible in that possession. You're not just dribbling out the shot clock, but you don't take anything above like 5 seconds left on the shot clock, let alone fucking 15 plus seconds on the shot clock. So, and then in overtime, he turned the ball over again. He struggled down the stretch, man. He wasn't exactly I don't want to say ready for the moment because he basically stole their hearts. But was he the inbounder too on the pass where it went out of bounds on Siakam, and that's how Jaylen Brown hit the game tying 3? I don't remember if he was or not.
I can't remember that.
Just a lot of issues. And the last thing I'll say about that game is I know I said they pissed away stealing it, but in reality, Scotty, like this would have been one of the greatest game 1 road victories I've witnessed in a long time, because this wasn't like, oh, the Celtics played poorly or shot poorly from 3 or Halliburton went nuclear for 52. Like, this wasn't that. This was a lopsided free throw competition in the Celtics' favor. The Celtics made more threes. The Celtics had multiple 12 to 13 point leads in almost every quarter of this game that the Pacers came back from. Like, this would have been a very, very good road win to steal game 1. Like, this wasn't like Harden walking in there last year and dropping 50 and stealing it from them. Like, this was a much deserved taking your heart from you win when you played your best game. Unfortunately, they didn't do it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think holistically, when you look at this game, with everything that you said, I think it ultimately, with the loss, does the complete opposite for them. And I honestly, like, where I'm at with this series, I think this series is over in about 5, honestly. I think if they win that game, maybe, just maybe, they can compete with them in a 7-game series and maybe, just maybe, beat them. Like, they showed that they're a very deep, versatile team. But, like, when you come away from a game against the Boston Celtics in Boston, you have, 2 possessions at the end of the game where Andrew Nembhard is, one-on-one with Al Horford, nailing mid-range fadeaway jumpers in his mouth, back-to-back possessions. You have TJ McConnell hitting fadeaway mid-range jumpers in the paint. Like, you had everything on the table there for you to close out this game. Miles Turner had a monster game. Tyrese Halliburton, with those mistakes at the end, they happened at the end, so it ultimately faltered his performance. But he was hitting some crazy shots in this game. He was making some crazy plays. And Pascal Siakam, he showed his experience, right? He showed he can get a bucket on this team. And so, like, there is 2 ways this series can go. I'm leaning one way. It could go the opposite way, where the Pacers feel like they can compete with this team at every level. Like you said, the Boston Celtics, they did hit a big amount of threes last night.
Yeah.
You did have big performances from Jaylen Brown, from Jason Tatum. But my only concern is that when is the Derek White game going to come? And then the Al Horford game, and then the Peyton Pritchard or the Sam Hauser game. Like, that's what worries me, right? You had this game in the bag last night. There was a point under a minute. They were up 5. You have to win that game.
Gotti, man. 10 seconds left, up 3 with the ball.
It's just like the Maxey, the game with Maxey where he gets thrown on the ground at the end of the game, right? Sixers are up 5 with a minute left in that game. I think it was game 2 or game 3? Something. It was game 2.
Game 2.
And nonetheless, whatever happened, officiating, whatever. Same thing could be said with this game if you want. Officiating, whatever. You can't lose that game and then expect to win the series against a team like that. That's what worries me. But there is a world where the Pacers bounce back in game 2. Do I think they're going to go into Boston? And I think that was to be more direct, I think that was at least the game that you would steal in Boston. Maybe you win both in Indiana and it goes 6 games, whatever.
Yeah,
But that was your stolen game in Boston that you faltered away and let slip out of your hands, man. So that does
I
worry
agree.
me for the Pacers. How do you feel about the other series, though?
I am interested to see real quick what the odds
Yeah,
makers decide to do with this one, though, because if you
plus
continue
10
to
and a
give
half is
me
wild.
Indiana double digits, I'm taking it every night. Like
Yeah,
they are too good. To TR's point, that offense is too explosive. Even when Boston is able to stretch it to double digits, they're too explosive to get the game pushed to
yeah,
20 or 25,
yeah.
right? So I think that they'll be able to at least hang around. If not, they could get swept and still cover every game if they're double digit underdogs. So I love that. But
Marshawn Lynch going through a little trauma right now. We know, Marshawn. Trust me. We know what happened at the end of that game. But when it's all said and done, 2 years from now, they're not going to look back at game 2 and say, "Oh, the officiating." They're going to say, "Oh, the Sixers
I'll
blew
do
a
it.
5-point lead in
I'll do it for
48
you.
seconds." I will too. I feel you. I do. I
I'll do
feel
it.
you, man. But it just speaks to
When the
my
officials are still a problem 5 years from now, I'll go, yo, you remember in 24
yeah, fair.
when they
And
literally
I think that's the problem with social media, man. That's why I say I'm losing faith in the NBA. Like, as somebody who covers the NBA directly, right? And my other co-host from my NBA show texted me last night and he said, "Bro, I don't even know if I can cover this shit anymore." Like, it's like covering the WWE at a sense. Like, in last night's game, it's obvious that the direction the officiating crew took was anything in the middle or even close is going to go Boston's way.
Yep.
We're going to give everything to Boston tonight. They need to win game 1. Like, that's obviously what happened.
Yeah.
Like, when you watch a podcast of a former referee saying that he pinpointed Allen Iverson after Allen Iverson did something disrespectful to Steve Javie or something. And so the next couple of games, he tells his officiating staff, "We're going to penalize Allen Iverson for everything that he does in this game, even if he doesn't do it." When you have shit like that going on, man,
I'll say this: it was a great
faith?
documentary. Don't get me wrong; it was a great watch. The Tim Donaghy documentary to come out, which I believe is part of the thing that discusses AI, is one of the worst things that could have ever happened to the NBA.
Yeah.
Because you have a flimsy product when it comes to your officials and the officiating game to game, especially on national television and in big moments like the postseason. And when you see shit like that, and it's because the true fan in you, like some people, oh, this is rigged, this is scripted, leak the script. The true fan in you goes, man, shut up, it's not rigged, stop.
Right.
But then you watch an actual documentary about an official who went to prison discussing how they fixed games and spreads. What happened? So, you would think the guys that are doing it right now wouldn't be dumb enough to do it after all this information has come out. But then you watch the horrifying officiating, and you're like, what the hell is happening?
I don't think it's scripted to the point where they make the ball go in the basket that way. Like, I think the players do play basketball at the end of the day.
Right.
But I do believe it was like an Evan Turner interview a couple years back, or maybe it was more recent. I'm not even sure. It was on a podcast. But he talked about how he was so excited going into a playoff game. I think it was against Boston when he was playing for the Sixers.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
The veterans told him, like, "Bro, like, we're about to get fucking hammered in Boston. Like, we're not going to get any fucking calls. Like, don't get your hopes up." So I think it's like one of those things, kind of like last night, where you're playing Boston and the referees, and that's just the way it's going to happen sometimes. I mean, you just have to hope, if you're the Pacers, that maybe when you go home, you get one of those games.
The game ended 30-10 free throw discrepancy, but I know that 7 of Indiana's 10 came in overtime.
Yeah.
So they shot 3 free throws.
That's insanity. That's insanity, bro.
So that's pretty crazy.
Real quick, before the Eagles schedule, what about the Western Conference series? What are your thoughts there, man?
I'm excited for that one, man.
That one's hard to pick. To pick. I want to lean T-Wolves personally. I do. But I don't know if that's more me wanting the T-Wolves to win than them actually being like the team I think's gonna win.
Here's my thing, man. Here's my thing. I do, because I think Ant is an absolute superstar. I think he's a monster. I think he's a dog. I think he's so incredibly fun and funny to watch.
Yeah, I agree.
But I hate the rest of the Timberwolves.
I feel you. Yeah, I do. I feel you.
Pat's a bitch. Gobert's a bitch. Kyle Anderson's a weirdo. Like Mike
Yeah, I
Conley's
cannot
boring.
stand to
Like
watch Kyle Anderson play basketball,
I
bro.
like outside of Anthony Edwards, I could give two shits for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
I feel that. I
On the
really
other
do.
side, I don't really care for Kyrie Irving, but he's going off in the postseason. He's going off in Game 7s.
I like Luka.
Luka needs to focus on playing basketball and stop bitching
The
like the
officials,
classic European that he is every single play with the referees.
You saw in the
Like,
one
bro,
game he did that against OKC.
When your own coach has to come out and make a comment about you needing to just focus on the game, that's a problem.
It was so crazy because in Game 5, he literally made a point to not talk to the officials, and then Game 6, he reverted right back to the same guy, complaining about everything. He couldn't last like longer than a game. But no, I do feel you because I don't know. I kind of like Luka. I'm trying to think of everybody else in the Mavs. I like Derek Lively, obviously from Duke.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess it's really just I'm rooting for Ant Edwards. Like that's what it comes down to.
And I think that's the thing, man. You have a couple stars that are going to get there, guaranteed to get their first rings this year. And I will just come out and say that I'm rooting for everybody but Jason Tatum and the Celtics to get their first ring. Like that's the bottom line. Either Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are going to get a ring.
Yeah, I
or
can't.
Tyrese Halliburton is going to get a ring. Or Anthony Edwards is going to get a ring.
That's fine.
Or Luke is going to get a ring. So that's pretty cool. I do not want the Celtics. And I kind of don't want Kat and Rudy Gobert to get a ring.
Man, that was the thing about last night, brother. Like, Tatum was trying to throw that game away at the end of the fourth quarter. Like, you gave him an extra breath of life.
Horrible.
There was a point where he had a Drew Holiday screening for him.
Let me ask you a question.
Threw the ball without looking.
Let me ask you a serious question. Do you remember what game was it at where we should have lost because of Joel against the Knicks and we didn't? It was his triple-double game, but he had like 9 turnovers and he was horrible in the fourth quarter.
Right?
Was it?
It had to be game 5 when Maxey hit those threes. Yeah.
So I remember like tweeting it and telling you, like, you saw how social media was when Embiid was almost the reason for a bad loss.
Yeah.
I'm so curious to know if that's how other fan base, because like that fourth quarter from Jason Tatum was a legitimate, was maybe worse than anything Joel did in Game 5.
Yeah.
Missed shot after missed shot after missed layup down the stretch, turnover after turnover, and your team had multiple double-digit leads at home.
Yeah.
Like that's worse than Embiid on the road with a broken knee and face. So like I'm truly curious if like other superstars get the same treatment that we give to him, because it's like what Tatum did would have been unforgiving if they lost that game. If Jaylen Brown,
they gave him extra life in overtime because I don't know how many points he scored in overtime, but he
had an N1 on TJ McConnell, and then the next possession he splashed a 3 from the top of the key, and they called a timeout.
And that's the thing, in the fourth quarter, he had like 3 wide open threes where he could have iced the game, or maybe not iced it, but tied the game or taken the lead in the game and just bricks. But then you give him that extra life in overtime, and he comes back and kills you. And now he escapes that narrative for one game, right? Like one game in the Eastern Conference Finals, he's escaped that narrative of being a choke artist, because I was texting a couple of my boys last night, like, bro, like I'm a Duke fan, but like this man, like he's trying to give the game to the Pacers. It was odd, and it was similar to like
he finished. It's so funny, man. He finished with 36, right?
Yeah, 36 and 12, bro.
But my man was 2 for 8 from deep and 12 of 26 from the field. Sorry, brother. Like, well, and again, it all comes with that quarter, because I remember they pulled up his numbers heading in. It was at midway through the third quarter, and he was 8 for 14 at the time.
Yeah. Because Jaylen Brown saved his ass in reality in the fourth quarter. That's what happened. And then, Jason Tatum comes back and saves his own ass in overtime. It reminded me of, I guess it's not the same as Game 6 last year against Boston in Philly, where he was sucking ass.
Here's my issue, right? Here's my issue. And I do, and I'm not like calling him out, but like I did see Mark Henry Jr.'s tweet about Tatum, having 36, and he's the only one that gets criticized this way. Like he had 36 and they won and blah, blah, blah. But like I guess, I mean, I directly just compare it to Joel. So, like, that's where I get, like, different. Like, so, like, all right. So he had 36 on 12 of 26 shooting. Let's say Joel had 36. In what fucking world does my superstar get the help of 15, 15, 26, and 28 from his other starting 4 guys?
Yeah.
That's why he gets criticism, because yes, he was a plus 20. He scored 36. He was good in overtime. They won the game. But he's their star.
Yeah.
He was bad in the fourth quarter, really bad in the fourth quarter.
And
he gets bailed out by 28 and 26 and 2 15-point scores. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And to your point, if the Celtics don't win it this year, are they ever going to win it? I mean, it's hard to say, like, no, they'll never win it, right? Like, you can just have a year where maybe Tatum gets hot in the postseason or Jaylen Brown gets super hot in the finals, right? Like, whatever. But when you look at the overall talent, that has been put together in this team, like Al Horford, how many years does he really have left? Kristaps Porzingis isn't playing right now, to be fair, but you're going to have to figure something out with Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis.
And Scotty, let's talk about this, man. Like, if not this year, let's talk about this road that they're on. You played the Miami Heat with no Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
Then you got the fucking Cleveland Cavaliers, and Donovan Mitchell missed half the games. Now you're getting a first-time Indiana Pacers team as a 6 seed who's overachieving. And if you get to the finals again, you're playing a first-time Dallas Mavericks or Minnesota Timberwolves team.
Yeah.
If not this year to capture it all, you are never going to get it done. And that's coming from like a Sixers fan that thinks he has hope each and every year. You are never going to get an easier road than this with, I don't want to use the phrase easier finals opponent, but like it's true. Like would you rather be playing the Minnesota Timberwolves, or would you rather be playing, I know they just beat them, so it sounds corny, honestly, but would you rather be playing Denver, or would you rather be playing like Kevin Durant and LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard and that team? Like, I know it sounds corny because those teams are at home and the young team's in it right now, but you are going to have the advantage of playing the young, inexperienced, in reality, lesser talented team.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's interesting, man.
Yeah.
I do just wonder, like, I think if the Mavs made it, the Celtics would maybe have a better chance at winning the NBA championship. I think if the T-Wolves make it, I don't like that matchup for the Celtics at all. Honestly, I don't know. It's something about
whoever
a big
it is, I'm rooting hard
big
in
man
the opposite
mismatch.
direction.
Like, as much as I'm not a huge fan of Karl Anthony Towns, he did show me something against Denver, especially in those last few games in that series. I guess I shouldn't say he showed me something. It's more or less that he's kind of fallen off the last few years, and then he kind of reverted back to that all-star form.
It's just annoying because, like, then the other center they have that I absolutely hate even more than Cat is like the reason Cat had to step up on defense against Jokic because their defensive player of the year couldn't guard. Like, just stop, bro. Like, just Rudy Gobert is the most useless waste of space I've ever seen from a basketball floor, and he's about to play in a Western Conference Finals. It's so fucking frustrating.
That is the thing with Minnesota, though, their defense, man. Like, I think, like, to watch that Denver series and watch Denver. Well, we had the total in that game, right? Over 199 or some shit in that game 7, bro. And fucking Denver scores like 35 points in the second half. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that's that Minnesota stifling defense or if Denver just shit the bed, but
a little bit of both.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, man. All right, let's wrap up this hour-long show with a little football talk. We can dive deeper into it. Obviously, we have all season 2.
We got Friday.
We have up until September 6th to get into it. But like I said, from being sick, we did miss the NFL schedule release last week. And with that comes the Eagles schedule release. And here is our initial look at it. I'm not going to give you game by game. We can run through them, but my initial thought process is this, and I think everyone has kind of laid this out already, but I'll give it to you. it is a very, very, very favorable schedule for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, obviously, when you are coming off of a wild card loss compared to a Super Bowl loss, your schedule is going to be a little more favorable for you. There's no gauntlet like there was last year.
Yeah.
Right. There's no 4 or 5 week you look at on paper and go, oh shit, that's going to be interesting, right? There's no Buffalo, Kansas City, Dallas, whatever, at Seattle on Monday night. There's none of that. They don't get killed. I don't think they play a team coming off of a bye week, and the Eagles don't get killed on any sort of like short weeks, Thursday night type of matchup, stuff like that. We obviously have to see how these new coordinators play with Nick Sirianni. We obviously have to see how the actual Vic Fangio defense looks. We have to see how some of these rookies in the secondary play, if Saquon Barkley can fit, whatever the case may be. Am I crazy for saying 13 or 14 wins?
Oh man, no, you're not, man. And honestly, it sounds so foolish when it comes out of my mouth, I guess, but obviously they're gonna lose a game or two that we just don't see coming. Maybe like you know, like that's where I have to like throw one out there. But when I was really going through game by game, it's hard. It's like incredibly hard to not come away with 13 wins.
Yeah.
It's hard. Like it's hard to not pick at least 13 games that they're going to win. I asked you before the show, is this the year that the Eagles sweep the Cowboys? Can they go 2-0 against the Cowboys this year? There's no primetime games against the Cowboys this year. I thought that was interesting as well. No Sunday night footballs, no Monday night footballs.
I know. In a year where Dallas is tied for the lead in primetime games with the Jets and with the Niners. So like
it's almost like they know Dallas is going to have a little bit of a down year and they just don't want that to be on national television.
Listen, man, on paper they are. To your point. And that's the only way we can analyze this right now. Like no one knows until September hits what these teams look like on the field. But on paper, yeah, absolutely. I think this is the opportunity for the Eagles to do so. For my money, like you said, does it ever really shape out that way? Probably not. They might lose a game to Washington that we don't expect, but you're looking at rookie situation there. You're looking at just an absolute disaster going on in New York right now. And you look at a Dallas Cowboys team that has offensive line issues, that just lost Dan Quinn as their defensive coordinator.
Made little to no improvements this offseason.
Outside of CeeDee Lamb, I don't know if they have a receiver that's capable of running a route in the NFL. They moved on from Tony Pollard. What are they doing? What's their move? Bringing Ezekiel Elliott back? Like they have nothing in the backfield anymore. They don't want to pay Dak Prescott. They have issues. So to your point, like you could be looking at 6 wins in the division alone this year. Let's be generous and call it 5. Let's just say 5-1 in the division. Wherever that loss,
maybe the Commanders give you a tough game or
something. Maybe Jaden Daniels does that to you. I don't know. I don't foresee it happening, but we watched Sam Howell do it to us last year almost.
One matchup I'm excited for, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are excited for it, but that Baltimore matchup, the first time we really get to see Hurts and Lamar go against each other.
Versus Jalen.
It's going to be interesting.
I also believe this is the first time we get Burrow versus Jalen as well, right?
Interesting, yeah.
I believe so. I could be wrong, but I think so.
Because Burrow, we tied with him his rookie year, but I believe
Wentz was playing, and Wentz was our starter. So so you get that as well, and that's what I would say, right? I can pinpoint 1, 2, 3. I'll pinpoint 5 games for you where you legitimately go, that's going to be difficult. Like difficult. Not like, oh, they're underdogs or anything. Just that's a difficult.
5? At
Baltimore.
Yeah.
At the Rams on Sunday Night Football.
I agree.
At Cincinnati. Home for Cleveland. And I honestly didn't even pick a 5th. I'm just looking in the first 4 weeks, and I'd say the Brazil game with Green Bay, or at Tampa, or at New Orleans. One of those 3 could be a game where you're like, none of them are at home, all tough, gritty, those kind of teams.
Do you think Atlanta's going to be better this year with Kirk Cousins?
That's true. Actually, that's a great point. I almost completely forgot.
But it is a primetime Kirk Cousins game.
They also brought in, is it Kirk Cousins or is it Michael Penix? I don't know what's going to happen in Atlanta.
Pittsburgh, do you consider that a tough game? Russell Wilson
or Justin Fields? What the fuck are some of these teams doing, bro? What are some of these teams doing, honestly? Tough game, very interesting.
It's in Philly, so
I guess, yeah. With that defense, they're always going to be in games, and if one of the two quarterbacks on the carousel does work out, like that's all they've been missing lately, right? They've just been missing a quarterback, and not even a good quarterback. An average middle of the pack quarterback that can game manage, push the ball down the field here and there, and get things done a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I guess so, depending on how that quarterback situation works out. The issue is Russ might be cooked, and I've never been a fan of Justin Fields. So I don't know, but sure.
It's funny. Justin Fields is a lot of the same as Kenny Pickett in a sense. Obviously a better runner, but just not a prototypical quarterback that's going to get your wide receivers the ball, right?
We play 17 games, okay? I would say I'll give you 8 max are tough to difficult. 8 max. You balance that out with the fact that they might lose a game they shouldn't. They might win a game they shouldn't. Yeah, I'm coming out to around 13, man. I really do believe that. And it's not just the fact that the schedule is pretty favorable for them. It's how talented I think this team is, man. Like it's, I know we talk ourselves into this every year, and I remember this time last year after drafting Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and making some of these moves, we said, "Oh my God, they're better than they were. They're Super Bowl year." Well, it turns out they weren't, and it turns out losing those coordinators hurts more than we ever could have thought.
Yeah,
we don't know what Kellen Moore's offense is going to look like with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley and everybody. We don't know what Vic Fangio's actual tree is going to look like.
Yeah.
But Scotty, are they as close to flawless as you could possibly try to ask for? In the trenches?
I think the only thing I guess
what they did in the secondary in the draft?
The only thing that I don't want to call it a concern because I feel like we're so like
even now they have Devin White and Trotter Jr.
defensively. Right. Linebacker is what I'm looking at, right? Like that's like maybe the biggest question mark. Maybe like Jason Kelce replay. Like there are like a couple question marks, but I mean, for me to not have faith in Coach Stoutland with that offensive line unit, right? Like, and then like you look around the linebacking unit, you have guys that will help them, like a CGJ, a Reed Blankenship that can play a little bit of linebacker at time, right? Like not real linebackers, but they can come down in the box and help. And so when I look at it that way, with Vic Fangio, who has a ton of experience, it kind of like balances it out. Now, let me ask you this. When you look at the Eagles and what they typically do, how they stay aggressive, why wouldn't they go out and get a Calais Campbell or a Justin Simmons or a legitimate wide receiver 3? Like that's not out of the cards yet in this offseason. So it is crazy to think about. They could still get better. Like a Calais Campbell sounds really nice to me. I know he's old. I know like he maybe has had a little bit of a downturn since his big days with Baltimore. But he was still solid in Atlanta last year, and he brings that veteran experience that I would like in the middle there to kind of replace Fletcher, right? But no, that it just speaks to where we're at. We have a ton of options, and I don't think they can get worse. And I do agree with you, like 13 wins, man. It's like I feel like I'm being almost modest in a sense because like I've really come out to about 14 wins, 14-3 record, like calculating no injuries, right? Obviously, it's not going to play out that way, but on paper right now, no injuries. Every team fully healthy right now. That's really where I come out to. And I know things can change. Like I have Baltimore as a loss. They could beat Baltimore and they could lose to Jacksonville on Sunday Night Football. Probably won't happen that way, but these are the things we have to obviously watch out.
That's why it's so tough for me. I almost don't even like doing it, going down and going win, loss. But when you look at the schedule and the framework of it, and taking into account they'll probably lose one and then win one here, like you can come around the framework of, okay, 12. That's where I'm at. 12 to 14. I'm more in the 13 ballpark area.
Yeah.
Again, I know we're looking at schedule, man, but it just goes to what this team is and what Howie Roseman built this offseason. And there's still question marks, like you said. There's question marks on defense. There's question marks with the offensive line depth and who's replacing Jason. Jalen needs to have a bounce back year, but I mean, I
agree with that as well,
Scotty.
But like, how don't you have a bounce back year when you add Saquon Barkley behind you? Like, how doesn't that make your life 10 times easier? I was excited for DeAndre Swift, but Saquon Barkley is a different beast, man. Like, when you talk about a complete 3-down back that's going to be on the field at all times, I know the injury history. If that happens, it happens. We can't worry about that. But I don't know, man. It's going to be fun. And, obviously Devontae Parker, the retirement, that one caught me off guard, but I feel like it speaks to me the way the wide receiver room looks right now. And in my opinion, I think he looked at that room and thought, man, I'm just not going to get any burn here. This is not worth it. Like, and I think it speaks to how deep this team is.
Guys, man, like, you look down the depth of this team on offense, man. Mekhi Becton, right? Matt Hennessy brought in this offseason. CJ Uzoma, a big route running, pass catching type of tight end behind Dallas Goedert. Paris Campbell, Johnny Wilson drafted late. Will Shipley is going to make this team and get playing time. Like, I promise you that. Like, I listened to Zach Berman talking about it at Fly Sports. Like, you don't spend a 4th-round draft pick on a running back unless there's some sort of plan for him, being that pass-catching threat that he is as well.
Yeah,
Will Shipley's going to play. Kenny Pickett as the backup quarterback this year. You do that on offense. You add Saquon Barkley to it's already a very good offense. You bring in the mind of a young Kellen Moore. The sky's the limit for that. But, dude, and defensively, man, we talk – like, I get there's question marks. You added Devin White. You drafted Jeremiah Trotter Jr., you traded for Bryce Huff, who's on the up. You brought back CGJ. You brought back Maddox. And you drafted 2 of the top 3 corners in the draft in Najee and Mitchell to go with Darius Slay. Isaiah Rodgers is reinstated. Sidney Brown's going to come back off of injury.
Nakobe Dean.
Like, so where
Jordan Davis slimmed down, man. Where
there were issues, there's now lots of depth. I'll say that.
Yeah.
So,
a lot of options. That's a good point.
We'll see, man. We'll certainly see how this plays out. But initial Eagles schedule peak, 13 to 14 wins is where I'm at. I know 14-3 just sounds crazy. I know how incredibly difficult it is. Those seasons, what'd you say?
Where do the books have them right now? Do you know?
Let's check.
I think I saw like 10.5 or 11.5.
I think it's ridiculously low. It's the same thing with the Phillies. I'm taking that team total win.
Yeah. That's easy money if so. I think I saw maybe 11.5 is the highest that I would go in my mind as far as what I really saw.
Team props or futures. Brother.
I'm looking on FanDuel right now just to see.
Like, this should not be this difficult to find.
Oh, here we go. Win totals. Eagles. Where are we at? Yeah, 10.5, bro. Over on FanDuel at least. Over or under 10.5 wins. The over is at -104. The under is at -118.
Yeah.
They even have on FanDuel like Saquon's own category, weirdly enough.
I can't even find it on DraftKings, so I don't know what DraftKings is doing right now. But
Saquon Barkley to score 8+ rushing touchdowns, -115. To score 10 would be +240. It's interesting. Obviously, you think like Jalen Hurts touchdown vulture, but I think maybe you go a different route this year to keep Jalen healthy.
Yeah, and you got to
I
remember,
don't know.
man. Listen, they're still going to run it, but Kelsey's not here anymore, so that
Right.
does change a
That's a
little bit
great,
of how
great
the tush push kind of works, man. But
maybe you
I
follow
agree. Like,
Landon
don't get me
Dickerson
wrong,
around
it's unstoppable in a sense when you are on the half-yard line at the goal line. If you do have a 3rd and inches or 4th and inches situation, yeah, I'm all for it. Like, don't be dumb enough to turn around and lose
Yeah.
yardage off of a handoff. But
Can
when
you,
you're at 3rd and goal from the 2-yard line,
yeah,
let's not put our quarterback in this situation.
can you line Saquon up under center?
Under center, yeah,
Can you work on that this
yeah,
offseason and line him up under center? Because, I mean,
practice taking
if
snaps.
the reasoning for Jalen Hurts, I don't know why, you didn't try it with Swift
Right.
or whoever else, but if the reasoning is because of leg strength,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's like
we
the
have a
Titans.
new
The
quad
Titans would
god
do it
in
often with Derrick
Philly.
Henry. Now, Derrick Henry wouldn't line up under center and receive a snap, but he'd line up in the
Right.
shotgun, and it just direct snap to him, and he'd
Straightforward.
just
Yeah.
jump over
Maybe
the
that's an
pile or do
option.
whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
again, and he's here already. It is a great point. Like, why? I know he's a running back. He's not used to it. If you worked with him daily, not often, like this should not be like a
Yeah.
focal point
It's
of what
just like an
Saquon
end
Barkley's
of
doing, but
practice type of thing.
yeah, just hey, is this anything you're comfortable with? Now I know game situations are different. He might, but if he can get anywhere comfortable with it, yeah, why would you not put that monster on
Yeah.
at the half-yard line and not worry about
Preserve
Jalen's
your
knee
quarterback.
or anything like that? So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I think
agree.
it's a great point, man. But we're gonna
Yeah.
have a fun offseason, man. It's gonna be a fun summer, honestly.
Yeah.
The Sixers have all that cap space, even though we're very annoyed at them still. But we
What are they
know
gonna
we're
do?
gonna be excited when someone comes here or a trade is made
Are
or
you
whatever.
in the Paul George camp?
Yeah, we've talked about this. I am. Removing the business from the fandom is difficult. I think if you focus on the years and the money, I think business wise, it's probably a mistake at this point of his career to give him a 4-year max contract, right?
Yeah.
But if you just take it from a 2-year window and you say we have Paul George for the next 2 years with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and a bunch of
Yeah.
role players, yeah, I think that's something worth getting excited for as a Sixers fan. Like,
Yeah.
if you just put it this
Yeah.
way, against the New York Knicks this
Best way
past
to put it.
series, if you have Paul George instead of Tobias Harris, do you beat the
Yeah.
New York Knicks this past series?
Yeah, and you could even say Paul George at like basement level
Yeah.
in that Clippers series against the Mavs, right?
Yeah.
Like if you have that Paul George, you probably beat the Knicks.
No, you do beat the Knicks, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Better said.
yeah. So that's where I'm at. So yeah, you're gonna
Long
have the
off
Sixers fun off season, hopefully not annoying off season, not drama filled.
Right.
Eagles,
No Embiid rumors, please.
Phillies continue to stay the best team in baseball.
Yes, sir.
For my hockey, for my puck folks out there, Mitchkov might be coming over this year already. One short year.
Something
and
to
he
get
might be coming
excited
over.
about.
We are 3 or 4 years potentially, and the kid might be coming over this year, man. So we'll see where the Flyers stay at with him and all the updates from there.
Yes, sir.
But for myself, for Scotty, an hour and 20 minutes later, we are officially back. We apologize for the delay in shows. I don't know if you can tell. Still dealing with it, but we'll get through it, man.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your day. Don't forget, subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yes, sir. Peace, everybody.